In order to get you to listen to my podcast, I try many things. I ply you with gifts and promises, implying that somehow that if you listen to this podcast, your life will become better. So with that being said, today I'm going to be talking about the role of the invincible sensei. See what I did there? I changed the word invisible for invincible because I'm so smart. Kia ora, I'm Tuari Dawson and you're listening to the Invisible Sensei podcast. So I have just come back from Okinawa, and if you listen to the podcast or you see my socials, you'll see I've gone on and on and on and on about it, probably to the point where it's becoming quite obnoxious, but I shall do so. I shall do so because it is my right to do so. And look at me cracking myself up. This is awesome. I wanted to talk today about why I called this particular episode The Invincible Sensei, and kind of where my time in Okinawa has kind of encouraged me to look. And I want to get in depth in terms of talking about my experiences there in another podcast. But today I want to tell you where I've gotten to in terms of what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling and what the future holds. So when I went to Okinawa this time, there was a couple of things that I was on my to-do list. One was to attend Karate no Hi, which is the World Karate Day in which Kokusaidori, the main street of Naha, Okinawa, is filled with thousands of people from all over the world practicing karate and kobudo. And the other was to attend James Pankovic Sensei's 100 men kumite. No, it wasn't 100 men kumite. It was a 100 kata challenge. Different things, man. Different things. And so with that, having the opportunity and also training with people and also teaching at a very prestigious, very lucky to teach at a very prestigious seminar myself, very lucky. I'll get into that. I was kind of wanting to get a gauge at where I was or where I am and where I'm going to and where my level is at and if I'm moving in the right direction. And there was definitely plenty of that. But the first part of it is letting go of illusion. Now, my illusion, I called this episode The Invincible Sensei because I don't think that I'm invincible, but there is this belief sometimes when you train in isolation, as I do for a lot of my training. I just sort of plug away at it. And what can creep in is a little bit of self-delusion in terms of how good you are or you aren't, and whether or not you're doing something which is relevant and interesting, and whether or not it's something that would be palatable to other people. And so part and parcel of that is the idea of validation, the idea of people pleasing, which I have a long and interesting history with, right? So going to, let's say I was lucky enough to go with my friend and karate brother, Josh Simba Sensei of the Okinawa Karate podcast. I give it a listen to where all good podcasts are sold or listened to, wherever that is. We went to Karate no Hi and we just hung out. It was really cool. And so Josh and I, it's a beautiful warm day, as it always is in Okinawa. Josh and I are walking up the street, we're seeing friends, people are coming up and talking to us, and you're just realizing that karate is, and kobudo is just this international language, and it's huge. Seeing people from, not just Japan and Okinawa, but from Germany and Hungary and Switzerland, England, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, all these different, you name it, and there was people from those places there doing karate and kobudo. And it was just kind of this moment of awe and realizing that you're kind of part of a global community. Now we know the realities of that in the sense that global community, yes, but also part of global politics, whether we like it or not. That's just a fact of the matter, You know and I know. Lie to me, but don't lie to ourselves, right? And so for a moment, it was really cool to see that unity and just get a sense of people moving. And you see all sorts of styles, Gojuru, Shurunru, Uechiru, the various branches of all of those styles. Matsubashi, Okinawa Kempo. Just it was just amazing, and it was really inspiring to kind of be around that energy and to be talking to people. Then cut to the 100 Kata challenge on Namanui Beach, and Josh and I are out there. I'm what I can say to you is this: if you're going to go to Okinawa, I would encourage you not to take a heavyweight gi. I live in New Zealand and we have summer, but it's not nowhere near as hot as Okinawa. So most of the time I wear heavyweight gi. I think probably on some level I like to hear that snap, to form myself into believing I'm amazing at kata. So I have heavyweight gi. Don't take them to Okinawa. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, we're out there on the beach. It's a beautiful morning. Yoshimitsu Arakake Sensei of the Matsubashi Shorin-ryu, our fantastic practitioner, and Jane Sensei's Sensei, did a wonderful introduction and welcomed everyone. And you just had, the beach was full of just these incredible practitioners going through their paces. And you've got people who, middle-aged people like me and older, you've got young people, you've got people in their 20s and 30s, you've got people who are absolute specimens of physical perfection, really, and their karate shows it, working their asses off in the heat. And then you've got me trying to hide under the bridge to get some shade and just try and keep up and go through what I can. Yes, it's a little bit of self-depreciation going on there. I will include a link so you can actually see the event. It was an amazing event. But what was running through my mind is, Josh Sensei and I kind of sort of posted up at a specific point, and he was going through at like 1,000 miles an hour, fantastic kata. And I was just happy to be there, to be totally honest. And the urge to compare yourself to other people, or compare myself to other people, is really strong there. And it kind of was a bit of a theme throughout my time on Okinawa, that training with the likes of people like Hanshi Patrick McCarthy, Matsuda Sensei of Okinawa Kempo, training with Dan Antonson Sensei, and all of the incredible sensei at the Asato Dojo, training with James Pankovic, being at the Kaikan, going to the Budokan, all of these incredible masters that were everywhere, and you get to train with them. You don't often have time to sort of think about it. You're just so busy. Well, at least I was so busy trying to keep up. And I guess it kind of put me in a place where I started to think about what I was trying to do with the karate that I was doing. Am I trying to prove a point? Am I trying to be better than other people? And it wasn't until I've come back to New Zealand and sat down. I apologise for the creaking. It's a stupid chair that I'm sitting on. I promise. Listen to this. It's crazy. I promise it's a chair. I come back to New Zealand, I sit down and I start to kind of really take it in. And for me, the notion of invincibility kind of falls away. I think that, if I'm being honest, where my karate and kobudo is at, there is plenty of work to be done. And there are things that I've come back with that I'm going to let go, in terms of there were some habits and some things that I'd started to do that kind of crept in, that having that time around sensei like Jean Frenet Sensei of the Jundokan, Gema Sensei, Kinjo Sensei, spending some time in their company training with them at the Jundokan. It just, in terms of where I want to go with Goju-ryu, it gave me a wonderful direction. And that's what I'm going to pursue in terms of my training. But it also made me think about what I want my karate to be. And strangely enough, I talked about my uncle Duncan, who passed away tragically some months ago, who was a big influence on my formative life and kind of like a surrogate father figure growing up. He was a builder by trade, but he was so much more. And, one of the things that he did is he restored cars. And I'm not a car person. I mean, you're around me for 2 minutes, I know you have to put water in one end and gasoline in the other, or diesel, because we live on a farm. But you go into his workshop, and just the way that he stored his tools and the way that the work that he did, there was just such an order to it. There was just such a attention to detail. And when he would work on his cars, they were such beautiful vehicles. And in fact, one was used as a hearse for his final ride. And I don't mean to bring the tone of the podcast down, but that was the kind of man that my Uncle Duncan was. Now, he spent years, decades, tinkering on these cars. If he wasn't out doing something around the property or working or, all the things that he did, he would be in the garage working away on a special project. And I guess for me, where I've gotten to is that's where I want to take my karate. I want it to be something that I tinker with, that I work on, that it's something that I go to, and provides me with focus, and it provides me with an escape of sorts. But I just love doing karate and kobudo and iaido and jiu-jitsu and all those things. So I want it to be something which is, I guess I've entered that stage in my life where it's not about combat anymore, but it is about loving the process, just enjoying tinkering away. I don't know whether or not I'm saying this in parenthesis, that car will ever get out of the garage or I'm going to be showing people it. But I want to do something which I'm proud of. People talk about legacy, and when you go to Okinawa or you go to anywhere in the world where people are training or any dojo, there is legacy in the air. Miyagi Sensei, Kane Uechi, Gichin Funakoshi, Kenwa Mabuni, Taira Shinken, all of those great masters have left a legacy. And, it's 100 years after all those guys are long gone, over 100 years in some cases, and we are still practicing the kata and trying to understand and develop the approach that we have to the various styles. And that is a wonderful legacy. People talk to me about legacy, what my legacy will be. And I was kind of thinking, I spent coming up to 50 years doing all these things. And there was a time when I was kind of going, I need to try and find someone who wants to take all this on. And I don't mean that in that kind of, look, I'm so amazing and my secret techniques are so powerful that I must pass them on. But just I felt like, what a waste of time if I've learned all this stuff and I've got no one to pass it on to. And it made me think about the nature of legacy. And I think that all of the arts that I've experienced and the life that I've experienced through the arts, maybe it's not, I've learnt these things not because I need to pass them on. I've learnt them because there was something that I needed to learn as a human being from having practiced those things. Maybe it was not about passing it on to someone else. Maybe it was supposed to inform the way that I live my life and to teach me valuable lessons, which I'm still trying to learn. My idea about being an invincible martial artist is an illusion at best and a lie at worst. There's no such thing as invincibility. But my legacy, hopefully, is in the people that have come into the dojo and the friends that I've made and the kids that I've been privileged enough to train. If they can get to a point where they, and not even with martial arts, it's not about self-defense, but if they can make decisions where character and conscience inform that, even when it's unpopular for them to do so, then I think I've kind of done my job. If they're in a stressful situation and, anger is calling for a specific reaction and they choose the way of peace, then I've done my job. And I realise, of course, having said that, again, not being invincible and not being immortal, I probably won't live long enough to see those fruits, but I'm okay with that as long as I have made that contribution. One of the things that really impressed me about karate in Okinawa was that, it was talking about karate as in terms of a tool for world peace. And I know that in the world that I live in, karate and kobudo and the martial arts have brought me peace and are bringing me peace and continue to do so. And it kind of sounds like a little bit of a juxtaposition. It feels like a contradiction in terms, but if more people did martial arts, there would be less war. I honestly believe that. So did I come away from Okinawa believing that I was an invincible sensei learning secret techniques? No. I can say that I come away with, how would I characterize it? I come away with a map of the world and a group of destinations that I want to strive to reach. Will I reach them? Probably not. But in terms of training, in terms of experience, I'm just loving the idea of walking towards those things. And I think that's where I'm at. I think that's where this trip to Okinawa and the people that I've been able to meet and the conversations I've been able to have is that, I love doing what I do. I love the people that I get to do it with. I love the friends that I've made through this podcast. I love the interactions. And I love what I do. I love that I get to tinker away on it at home. I've got space to do so. I've got a little dojo here. And, people ask me to come and teach in different countries and things like that. And what I'm sharing is not the definitive. What I'm sharing is, hopefully, where I am at on my journey and hopefully encouraging them on theirs. Invincibility doesn't exist, but curiosity, character, and the love of the game, so to speak, does. And I hope that you're able to find your own journey in all of this.